What's going on, YouTube? Listen up. Young Elder Gang, this is your buddy Tim Strokes, at you with another banger. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video. Fam, I hope this video get at least 100,000 likes in this video. You will find history definitions, scripture information, and best of all, what we Americans have been deprived of from the beginning, the truth. Keep in mind, this content used in this video is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. Disclaimer. The Federal Reserve states it is an independent entity within the government, with the Board of Governors appointed by the President and confirmed by the Senate, and that commercial bank ownership of shares does not grant control over policy. We will give you the total truth as we best understand it today. Be sure to hit that like button, Young Elder Gang, hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel, hit that bell, and don't forget to check back with us every day for new content. There is a monster living in America. It's not hiding under your bed, it's the United States national debt, a colossal, ever-growing beast that looms over our lives. This isn't just a number. It's a system designed to grow, feeding on our resources, a perpetual debt spiral that never sleeps. The national debt isn't just a number, it's a silent tax on your life. Every paycheck, a piece is taken to feed this unseen monster. It's an invisible chain, tethering your financial future to a growing behemoth. This monster isn't far away. It's right here, in your wallet, shaping your future every day. Every story has a beginning, and the Gothic tale of America's national debt starts not in a shadowy backroom, but on the battlefields of the Revolutionary War. A nation cannot be born without a cost, and the price of freedom was paid with borrowed money. The Continental Congress, the fledgling government of a rebellious people, had a war to win, but no treasury to fund it. So, they did what desperate people have always done. They went into debt. They borrowed heavily from foreign allies, primarily France and the Netherlands, who saw an opportunity to weaken their British rival. They also borrowed from their own citizens, issuing bonds and promises of future payment. This was not a clean or simple process. It was a chaotic scramble for funds. The early United States was a collection of 13 disparate states, each with its own agenda and its own war debts. The total debt was a messy tangle of IOUs, foreign loans, and state-level obligations. When the war finally ended in 1783, the new nation was victorious but financially shattered. The government owed approximately $75 million, a staggering sum for the time. This was America's original sin, a debt that would imprint itself onto the very DNA of the new republic. The beast was born, small and manageable at first, but with an insatiable appetite. The founders knew they were playing with fire. A nation built on a mountain of debt was a fragile thing. How could a government command respect if it couldn't even pay its bills? The soldiers who had fought and bled for independence were paid in paper notes that were nearly worthless. The states were bickering over who owed what. The entire experiment of American liberty was on the verge of collapsing under the weight of its financial obligations. It was a moment of profound crisis, where the promise of a new world threatened to be extinguished by the old world problem of debt. This early debt was more than just a financial ledger. It was a philosophical battleground. Some argued that such debts were a betrayal of the revolutionary spirit, a return to the corrupt financial systems of Europe. Others saw it as a necessary evil, the unavoidable cost of building a nation from scratch. But no one could deny its presence. From the very first day of its existence, the United States was not a debt-free utopia. It was a nation conceived in revolution and born into debt. This foundational reality would shape its destiny in ways its creators could never have fully imagined. Into this financial chaos stepped a figure of immense ambition and intellect, Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury. Hamilton was not afraid of the debt monster. He sought to tame it, to harness its power for his own grand vision of a powerful, centralized American state. He looked at the tangled mess of state and federal debts and saw not a problem, but an opportunity. In 1790, he proposed a radical plan. The federal government would not just pay its own debts, it would assume the debts of all 13 states as well. It was a bold, controversial, and ultimately world-changing move. Hamilton's argument was cunning. By consolidating all the debt into one national debt, he would bind the wealthy creditors of the states to the fate of the new federal government. If they wanted their money back, they would have to support the Union. It was a political masterstroke, creating a powerful class of stakeholders invested in the nation's survival. In his eyes, a national debt, if properly managed, was not a curse, but a national blessing. It would establish the public credit of the United States, allowing it to borrow money and function on the world stage. He was creating the beast's cage, but also ensuring it would be fed for generations. This was the moment the machine was truly assembled. Hamilton's plan laid the groundwork for a permanent financial architecture. The federal government would now have a vested interest in maintaining a debt that it could manage, tax, and borrow against. Opponents like Thomas Jefferson were horrified. They saw this as a betrayal of the agrarian ideal, a deliberate move to create a powerful financial elite, a moneyed aristocracy that would control the government from the shadows. They feared it would create a system dependent on bankers and speculators, mirroring the very corruption they had fought a revolution to escape. But Hamilton won. The debt was consolidated, and the system was set in motion. The United States now had a single, formidable national debt of around $75 million. The foundation was laid not just for a new nation, but for a new kind of financial power. The central government, now the sole manager of this massive debt, gained immense authority. Hamilton had not killed the beast. He had given it a permanent home in the heart of the American government. He had created a system where debt was not something to be eliminated, but something to be managed, traded, and ultimately profited from. The Gothic horror story had found its chief architect. The debt machine, once built, proved impossible to turn off. For nearly all of U.S. history, national debt has been a constant companion, except for a brief moment under Andrew Jackson. In 1835, the debt was paid off, but the victory was fleeting. The beast only slept and soon returned, stronger than ever. America's engineered wars and crises perfected the machine of debt. Each conflict and emergency fueled massive borrowing, making debt a tool for survival and a habit. Now the beast of debt isn't just present, it's the master, and borrowing is the new normal. In 1933, America's money changed forever. The government seized gold from citizens, replacing it with paper dollars, mere promises, not real wealth. Gold was outlawed for private ownership, concentrated in government hands. The people were left with paper, tokens in a rigged game. The shift was complete. With real money gone, fiat currency took over, money backed by nothing but government promises. The Federal Reserve could now create money from thin air, fueling endless debt. This system traps us in perpetual debt, eroding our savings and transferring wealth to the elite. The UCC quietly changed everything. Now, every transaction is commercial, and your name in all caps is a corporate entity. Your straw man. The government sends bills to it, not you, making you unknowingly pay its debts. You're the CEO of a company designed to be taxed and controlled. Banks don't just hold your money, they conjure new money from thin air. Through fractional reserve banking, your deposit becomes the foundation for a pyramid of loans, creating money out of debt. The profits are privatized, the losses socialized. It's the greatest con in history, and you're its unwilling participant. The U.S. national debt has soared past $34 trillion, a number so huge it's almost meaningless. But let's make it personal. Divide that debt by every American, and your share is over $100,000. For each household, it's more than $265,000, more than most families' homes, cars, and savings combined. This isn't just a number, it's an invisible mortgage on your life, growing while you sleep. The system wants you to believe you owe this, but in reality, your labor and identity have been pledged without your consent. The debt is unpayable by design. Its purpose is to keep you in perpetual servitude. The nightmare isn't just the debt, it's the illusion that you're responsible for it. If debt is the monster, interest is its heartbeat, pounding relentlessly, draining billions daily. The U.S. pays over $2.4 billion in interest every day, $100 million an hour, $28,000 every second. This isn't just numbers, it's real wealth flowing from taxpayers to anonymous bondholders. As debt grows, so does the interest, forcing the government to borrow more just to pay the interest. A classic Ponzi scheme. The cycle feeds itself, enriching elite bankers who create money from nothing and collect endless interest. They produce nothing, yet profit from every transaction. It's a silent heist, happening every second, locking the nation in a loop of debt. The perfect crime: you pay, they collect. Who profits from this endless debt? It's a tangled web: foreign governments, private investors, and even the U.S. government itself. Social Security's trust fund holds IOUs, not cash. Your retirement is just a promise from a broke government. The real power lies with those holding public debt: foreign nations like China and Japan, and above all, the Federal Reserve. The Fed buys government debt, creating money out of thin air, enabling endless borrowing. Behind the scenes, elite bankers and investment funds control the system, profiting from the very chains they forged. They own the debt, collect the interest, and rig the game in their favor. The house always wins. The debt machine is built to run forever, fueled by promises the government can't keep. Entitlement programs and interest payments now consume most federal revenue. There's never enough coming in. No politician dares cut spending or raise taxes enough to fix it, so the government borrows the difference, year after year. Crises like recessions and pandemics only accelerate the borrowing, resetting the debt to ever higher levels. Each year's deficit adds to the debt, which means bigger interest payments and even larger deficits next year. The cycle is a feedback loop: more debt, more interest, more borrowing. The machine has no brakes, only a gas pedal, and the bankers keep the pedal to the metal. The result? A nation locked in endless debt, serving its financial masters. Imagine every American tries to pay off the national debt, over $100,000 each. The checks would all bounce because the money simply doesn't exist. Our dollars are debt instruments, not real money. You can't pay debt with more debt. Since 1933, America has operated without lawful money, just IOUs circulating endlessly. Paying a bill just transfers the liability. The debt never disappears. Even if everyone tried to pay, they'd be using the very instruments of debt that created the problem. The system is a paradox. You're billed trillions, handed IOUs, and told to settle up. The financial elite designed it this way, ensuring they remain the permanent creditors. The debt can never be paid, only managed forever. What if Americans sold everything? Homes, cars, businesses, to pay the debt. Even this grand gesture would be futile. The bankers would end up owning everything, not as a metaphor, but as a literal fact. The debt is a black hole, able to consume all assets and still not be full. The goal isn't foreclosure, it's control. Yeah, the illusion goes deeper than money. Who really owes the debt? The government bills your straw man, an artificial entity in your name, not you. By acting for this entity, you become surety for a debt that was never yours. You are not the debtor, you are the asset. There's a crucial difference between paying a debt and discharging one. Since 1933, you haven't paid for anything, just discharged liabilities, swapping one IOU for another. True ownership is reserved for creditors at the top. The debt will never be paid because it was never meant to be. It was meant to be a cage. So, the financial machinery of debt is a system of energy transfer. It's your time, labor, and creativity fueling the machine. You are, in the most practical sense, a battery, your life force drained to power the system. The banks and government are just middlemen, harvesting your energy for their own benefit. Section 2. Feeding the Giants. Corporations as Harvesters. The individual human battery is the primary power source, but the energy is not harvested directly by the central banking overlords. Instead, it's collected through a network of intermediaries, the massive corporations that dominate our society. These corporate giants, as they're sometimes called, are the field agents of the system. They're the conduits through which your energy is channeled upwards. When you work for a corporation, you're plugging yourself directly into a larger harvesting apparatus. You trade your finite hours and creative power for a wage, a fraction of the value you actually produce, while the corporation concentrates the rest. These giants aren't natural entities. They're artificial persons, legal fictions created by the state and held in thrall by the same legal and banking society that runs the debt machine. They're designed to consume. They consume resources, they consume markets, and ultimately, they consume the energy of their employees and customers. When a corporation sells you a product or service, it's another transaction within the debt-based fiat system. The public debt, the unredeemed liability of the government's bankruptcy, is passed from the corporation to you. You're absorbing the public liability with every purchase, taking on another small negative charge. This creates a perverse incentive. The corporations, in order to thrive within this system, must take care of their inventory, that is, the people. They have to keep the batteries functioning, but not so charged that they become independent. That's why they provide just enough in wages and benefits to keep you coming back to work, but rarely enough for you to achieve true financial sovereignty. This accountability can manifest in strange ways. The system requires a constant flow of charges and discharges. It's a world of commercial offenses, where something as simple as a traffic ticket creates a charge that allows you to participate in the system. Without a charge from an offense, you can only exchange public debt, fiat money, for more public debt, like goods and services, which is technically against the spirit of public policy like HJR 192. This is why the system seems to create endless opportunities for fines, fees, and legal entanglements. These manufactured offenses provide the charges necessary to keep the commercial energy flowing. Either the corporation allows the consumer to hold the public liability, or it holds the energy back for its own industrial use. Either way, the individual is kept within the system, powering the corporate giants that stand as monuments to this grand, dark architecture of control. The negative charge of debt-based currency drains us, physically and spiritually. Our bodies become grounding rods for the system's toxic discharge, fueling aging and illness. The system traps us in cycles of debt, offering only temporary relief while deepening our entanglement. True remedy lies in reclaiming your sovereignty. Remember, you are the holder in due course of your own life. Who truly wins in this intricate game? The answer? The architects of the machine. Elite bankers pull the levers, creating money from debt, holding a monopoly on currency. They turn the American dream into their tool, ensuring the house always wins. America's debt is a cage, built not of iron, but of laws, ideas, and dependencies. The debt is the system itself. To escape it would collapse everything. The door is locked from the inside. We're trapped, not by force, but by our own choices and the system we've built. But we've wandered a Gothic nightmare, phantom money, endless debt, and a system built to enslave. Yet even in darkness, a single candle can cast a defiant light. The end of this nightmare begins with awakening, when you question the reality presented to you. The truth is out there, waiting for you to find it.